if you're running things based on gut feeling, it is not healthy.
Welcome to Alt Investing Made Easy, where we explore the complex world of alternative assets. I'm Roland, a securities attorney, investment advisor, and your co-host.
And I'm Sarah, an investment advisor and corporate attorney, and your other co-host. We'll guide you through real estate, private equity, and more, making complex topics accessible.
Tune in for insights that empower your financial journey.
Let's make alt investing easy, one episode at a time.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Alt Investing Made Easy. Thanks for joining us today. We're happy today to have a conversation with our new friend, Adil Sanusi. We know him from Provisors, and he's here to talk about his business, Scale Pro Advisors. Adil, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for hosting me.
Hey, Adil, it's great having you here. And we talked about this a little bit ahead of time that I wanted to start out. We'll hear your accent in a second, but you grew up in Alexandria, Egypt, and Sarah, you've been there too, so you can talk about your experience as well. But just growing up, I was always fascinated with Alexandria because, of course, the great library there that was destroyed, and just this idea of the loss of knowledge. And so maybe we can dedicate this episode of Alt Investing Made Easy to rekindling of knowledge about investments and turning around businesses, which is kind of the heart of what we're going to be talking with you about, Adil. But Adil, tell us a little bit about what it's like growing up in Egypt, maybe how Egypt has changed over time.
Yeah, for sure. Love to talk about that. So I grew up in Egypt, spent the 27 years there. My whole family is there. I grew up in Alexandria, and then went to college in Cairo. Spent 10 years in Cairo, and then after that, I made the move to the U.S. I moved here about 15, 16 years ago to do my MBA at Wharton. Finished that, and then joined Perella Weinberg Partners in New York to work in investment banking. So worked in Perella for 7 years in New York, 3 years in Austin, advising companies on M&A, restructuring, in distressed situations. All in all, spent probably like around 15 years in investment banking between Egypt and New York and Austin. And left in late 2023, spent a year doing independent advisory work, advising small businesses. Loved that. And then decided to launch a firm, launched Scale Pro Advisors in late 2024, where we do fractional CFO services for law firms, particularly PI firms. But today, I actually want to talk a lot about the lessons that I've learned in my professional career, and when things go bad, what firms needs to do in order to change the narrative. And what I've learned is it's the same thing happens across all industries. It's all about what you do when things are not working well, that will dictate the future.
Well, maybe you could start us out with the most common problems that you see in businesses that you've helped turn around.
Yeah. So I would say the common things. I'll tell you the common things that say, like, kind of the warning signs, and the people that you have a problem, or it's more of a sign that you have a problem that you may not know yet you have a problem, is because gut feeling really does not tell you the whole picture. And if you feel that things are okay, you feel things are okay, I would say it's very similar to when you go to your doctor, you do your annual checkups. But sometimes you decide, I don't want to go do my annual checkups. I feel okay. I mean, that's a recipe of disaster because you're not going to be able to catch something if it's too late. So that's why, like, it's always a sign that there's a problem if you just feel things. Um, but more importantly, our things are like typical things that you see: running out of money, being worried about making payroll. You're busy, but where's the cash? Um, you um, you basically um, have debt is coming due, and you figure out, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this, how I'm gonna solve the issue, how I'm gonna pay this debt. I'm gonna probably kind of refinance it. Living in your own belief that things are gonna turn around um, by themselves. And I think these are kind of a lot of the warning signs or a lot of the issues that um, companies tend to see. Um, a lot. The other thing that I tend to see is that if a company has a line of credit from a bank or from a private lender, what sometimes happen is because they have access to that line of credit, they keep on growing more money and more money and more money, so they don't feel the pain. They're not able to make payroll, but there is a problem. So the creeping
Mm.
of a line of credit, well, they're not like we'll basically tell you like, okay, like we have a problem, but we are able to draw more money to solve the problem. You can reach a point that even if you turn around the business, you have too much debt already, and you're not be able to solve it. Like the debt service, you're not going to be able to address it, and uh, like I think this is a something that we're all living right now, is that like you need to address it before it's too late.
You know, it's interesting, Adil, because what you're saying tracks with what we say as securities attorneys about disclosure and how important it is to have frank discussions with your investors when things aren't going well. But if you're relying on a gut feeling that things are going well and objectively speaking, they are not going well, you're actually in a really dangerous place also, not just because of the business that you're conducting having problems and perhaps not being salvageable, but you're in the zone where you're not being truthful. You're not representing truth, because truth isn't about how you feel. Right? It's
Yeah.
about factual information that can be demonstrated. So I think this is really relevant for our audience, people who are investors and sponsoring deals, because this is exactly the kind of scenario or person that you need to rely on when things are starting to get a little rough, to provide information that can give you clear information that you can use for disclosure.
Yeah, and Sarah, I want to touch upon this because you know, in the private markets, the level of disclosure is not the same as large, like in the public markets or even in larger private deals, right? So in the
Right.
private markets, you have a certain kind of things that, okay, I need these disclosures. But when things go bad, sometimes there's more stuff that is hidden. And as a result, I'll tell you kind of an example. And we can touch upon this. I'll give you, like, I was thinking about a situation that we're involved with, but I'll touch upon something very high level. You may have company because the way they book revenue and cost, right? And I'm not saying they're doing anything fraud, like everything is by the book. That revenue is like they look at it, oh, it's profitable, it's profitable, it's profitable. But a lot of that cost, because they're not able to book a revenue against it, it's just going into more of a working process, right? So it's whip, 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 whip. And what happens is that cash is being drained by moving an expense to the balance sheet.
Hmm.
And it is from an accounting standard perspective, they're doing the right thing. But the reality is you need to follow the cash, right? If
Yeah.
there's no cash, there's no cash, right? And that's the problem, is that like sometimes the private deals, the level of disclosure is not the same as larger companies, and you may find it like, okay, like you find the issue when it's too late.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's, it illustrates the importance of due diligence and having somebody to really drill down on the books and records of a company. We advise people in connection with acquisitions and investments as well, for sure. And so, what is that representation about the financial statements? What does it really mean? And do you have somebody like Adel, who's a financial expert, that can look at that and pull these little details out?
Yeah, I was just going to say that in fact, a lot of people rely on their CPAs, I think, for assessments sometimes. And CPAs are great, and CPAs do a lot of great things, and some of them have a full skill set that includes pure finance. However, not every CPA is interested or able to do at all what you're able to do, which is take the accounting and look at the books from a slightly different perspective, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's part of from the conversations we've had. That's part of the value, and I've heard the testimonials from other people who use your services about it too. Like just the whole reshaping the perspective about how you look at the financial health of a company is part
Yeah.
of what a turnaround does. It's not just are your books right. The books are a part of the story.
Yes. Yes. And the other thing is backward looking versus forward looking, right? Because
Mm.
backward looking is always like financial, like the books and the
Hmm.
disclosures are all about the past, right? Now, that's great. Like, okay, the past, you can't really change it, but understanding what is going to happen in the future and then being able to, like, it's a prediction, right? So you may be right, may be wrong, but be able to explain why do you deviated from what you forecasted. I think is very important because it gives someone the comfort, like, oh, they know what's happening with the business,
Mm.
right? If it's a business slowdown or it's a timing related issue, you're able to explain it instead of um yeah, I mean, things slow down and we're and using like a gut feeling type of excuse.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, important, we mentioned it before, but really moving from this subjective and, things that we, are just relying completely on feeling, moving towards data, things that are objective. And that's what's so important with investors and particularly, just making sure that people know really what's going on. It's not just that the CEO feels good today, but
Hmm.
actually this is the data that supports the, why we were so optimistic about our outlook.
It's
Yeah.
interesting too, though, because I do think just Adel, I don't know if you noticed this too, but my suspicion is that it's just a different world that we live in today where there's a lot more data and there are people who have skills that are offered more and more to mid-level and, businesses that are smaller businesses, let's say. And so now the data is so widely available and there are professionals available to help people learn how to interact with that data in a useful way, then things can shift away. I mean, you can imagine that 50, 60, 100 years ago when people were founding businesses, maybe gut feeling did make more of a difference because things moved more slowly and um, some things in your industry would be more predictable, perhaps. So I do think the change that's we're faced with is a critical one for everyone, but it also kind of makes sense as a progression, probably, and
Yeah.
just how business culture is changing as we're all adapting to you know, a big data world. Although the
Yeah.
books are basic data that's been around for a long time, I think, uh, it's, I think it's interesting how this is all working. So,
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like a lot of people talk about the importance of having clean books. Um, I look at it as you can have a lot of clean books, but the question is how you are capturing the information. So there's a lot of clean books that are all right, but the question is, are you capturing them in the right buckets so that you can use the information that happened historically to understand what's happened in the business and make decisions for the future.
hmm.
I always say, like, your books are about what happened in the past. If your book says there's a problem, guess what? The problem happened and you're not able to address it. It's all about having taking a step now, knowing what is going to happen in the future. And I'll tell you, like, you said it about like small business. The reason um I decided like to start Scale Pro Advisors is the fact that big companies have that resources, have a CFO in house, have the capabilities to do this stuff. Small business are running at a disadvantage because they cannot afford to hire a CFO to do this stuff, right? So that's why there's like now a boom of like fractional CFOs, because they can provide that level of advisory work for the small business that they needed to put them on an equal footing to compete with the larger businesses. But more importantly, for me, that's kind of personally on the small business world, is if you improve or help a small business, that value changes lives, right? It changes the life of an owner of the business. It changes the life of their families. It changes the lives of the people that they're employing. Larger firms, great, but a lot of that value accrues to like large institutional investors, which is kind of okay. It's great, um, but the impact on the small business, the institutional invest, like even like the institutional investor who invests in small business, the equity return for the small guy. um, I think this is has a personal meaningful impact for me, that I can help change this person's life. And I'll tell you, like in situations in small business, when I do that, I see it in their eyes when things turn around. They're
Mm.
like I feel the level of stress just
Oh, yeah.
disappears, right?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I do think it's kind of an unacknowledged financial stress, whether you're a small business owner or an individual, this is a real thing. It's a part of people's psychology. And it's really wonderful to hear you say that, Adil, because I've heard that from other people who work even with people psychologically on money matters, for example. It's like the amount of stress that a person can relieve when they realign how they relate to information, what tools are available to do things if things need to be turned around. I think it's like with anything that causes stress and anxiety, when you can identify it and then put tools around it and then put that in a useful direction, it's a huge relief. So it's almost like it must be in a certain way, like you're a you're specialist in the area that you're in, but there's also always a psychological aspect when you're dealing with really anybody in business, actually, at every level. There's famous coaches who charge $1,000 an hour who do this for big CEOs, right, to help them with the things that are stressing them. And so
Yeah,
I think that's really nice to hear. On this channel, part of our focus is on the process of wealth building. And our
yeah,
main premise, there are two parts to it. One is that everybody has a seat at the table. And I mean, everybody, even young, however old, wherever from, whatever gender, whatever personal way of identifying yourself. But also, the system here in the United States supports the democratization of capital. We have a system that actually makes it easy to set up businesses and things like that. I just was speaking to a new friend that I met yesterday. She's from Jersey, and she was saying it's just incredible how easy it was to start up a business here in providing services into the regulated financial industry, even.
yeah,
So I thought, just to touch on that, part of what you're able to facilitate is that process for people, because a lot of business founders turn out that's the beginning step in their wealth building journey. Sometimes it leads all the way to generational wealth, other times not necessarily, but that it's really important to have people like you who are available.
yeah. I yeah. I mean, you. I always think about, like, you need to have a mission before, like, when you're doing something,
Mm,
right? So
hmm
for me, it's like having a mission, being able to change people's life, having to add value is what drives me. Like
hmm
when people ask like what drives you, it's like creation of value.
Yeah. And,
Yeah, I don't.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking, Adel, maybe a case study of, without divulging any confidences, just
Yeah.
tell us a story about where you had a great success.
Yeah, sure. Let me talk about a situation that been involved with recently. It's a company that basically they do they're a GovTech company, so they do technology projects for the government. Um, they brought us in They brought us in because they had like things are working well. They have very profitable contracts, but they're struggling. Like they don't have cash. Where's the cash? They were things are moving. Like they have profitable contracts, delivering the projects. Cash is not there. Struggling to make payroll. And these are real issues, right? Like this is stressful. And I get on call with them, like trying to like go in there, understanding what's the problem. And what we did is like we started looking at built a kind of a 13-week cash flow to understand when the money is coming in, when is money going out, understanding all this in terms of timing. And we built that and figured out, oh, this is an unsustainable structure. Like this company is gonna run out of money. They're not gonna have enough money on their credit line to be able to make payroll. But we looked at all their contracts. They're actually profitable contracts. So what was the problem? We looked at every project that they had, and then we understood it was the structure of the contracts. The contracts are very capital intensive. They have to spend a lot of money at the beginning to build kind of to have deliver the build the equipment, deliver the projects.
Hmm.
Along the line, they are able to invoice on a milestone basis. However, they're running a negative cash position on all these projects because the investments are much higher than the cash they're able to collect. They make it up at the very end when they collect the big revenue component, and it pays for everything and they make their profit, and it's great. The problem is because of how successful they were, they got a lot of projects, took on a lot of these projects, and they spread to themselves too thin. It is a
Huh.
typical thing where I'll tell you, saying like people say like what kills companies is not profitability. What kills company is cash, right? You run out of cash, you're done. Um, so what did we do? We kind of diagnosed the problem, understood the problem because of how they spread themselves too thin. So then what we did, we started looking at every project that they had and start prioritizing. Said, okay, let's look at the ones that are quick cash. You're either at the very end or doesn't require a lot of capital, and you'll able to like get these finalized. And we took put them in a bucket. We took the other ones and we said, okay, these requires a lot of capital. Let's figure out how we can subcontract them out. And we figured out, found subcontractors. Some of them we subcontracted them. Um, some of them were subcontracted at a loss, which is fine. It's a trade-off that you do because other than that, the company would not exist. We came up with this plan. We went to the lenders. We got their buy-in on it so that they can understand now. Now they have a credible plan that this cash flow is coming in. It's going to take some time, but it's going to take. These are the buckets that are going to come value coming in. These ones are subcontracted, and we got the kind of the support of the lender, and we moved forward. In probably less than 3 months, we turned this story around.
Oh,
And the
wow.
story is now more cash coming in than cash going out. And eventually, you will have to get into the project that requires more capital investment, but build that rapport with the bank, show that things are working, show the cash coming in, and then go on a project by project to the bank or to the lender and say, hey, I want to fund this. This is the cash profile of it. So that the lender, when they go underwrite it, they understand the cash flow profile is what's the cash flow profile so that they get approval to fund that cash profile, the fund that cash flow profile instead of halfway through it saying like, oh, what's happening? And you start explaining the situation to them and you lose all the credibility in the world, right? So you want to start by educating your capital provider of what they should expect because they need to communicate that to their investment committee so that they get the right level of approval so you don't like hit these kind of hiccups down the road. um, and because I would always say like it's very important to know that um, when you're looking at projects, it's like, oh, all of them are MPV. I'm going to take them all. Guess what? Capital is not infinite. You need to like take on what you can actually deliver on and de-risk the whole process. And that's why like you grow slowly. Otherwise, you're gonna kill yourself.
I think that was a great example because it's not intuitive at all.
Yeah, I mean, uh, I think of it. Yeah, I mean, I always say like business, um, like business owners are great at doing what they're doing, right? They're doing it. They're are great at doing it. They're like, uh, um, in their craft, doing what they're doing. They're not finance is not their area of expertise. They know finance, but it's not their own area of expertise. Now, I could study all the finance in the world. I would not know that this is the problem if I have not seen over the course of like 15 years similar issues, right? It's all about the reps. It's all about seeing things and seeing trends and then taking that experience to say, okay, how is this relevant to what I'm seeing right now? Um, and because you saw those reps, you're able to identify them. It's not I hate the word of rocket science. Not because nothing's rocket science other than rocket science, but it's not hard. It's just you have to see trends in order to identify those issues.
You don't know
That's kind
what
of
you
one.
don't know.
Yeah, and then the other thing is the focus, right? What is the best use of my time as a business owner? Is to
Mm.
diagnose this issue, or someone else help me diagnose this issue that has no emotional attachment to the situation. They're not stressed. Help me do this stuff and then guide me, right? I always like when I talk to clients, I don't tell them this is the solution. Actually, we have a conversation because they know more about their business than I do, but I'm able to ask them the right questions so that we together are able to find the problem and decide, okay, what's the best solution for it?
Oh, that's great. I like the story, Adel, and I think everybody should really think about they're struggling with matching revenue and expenses, cash flows, and then you would be a great person to help them out. Sarah, we're coming up on 27 minutes, so what do you think? We probably should start to wind things up.
Let's ask Adel. We touched on it before. So, we like to talk about what personally motivates a person. You're an entrepreneur. You help entrepreneurs essentially. But many people, not just entrepreneurs, have sort of something that keeps them going. And so we discussed yours, a little bit before, but maybe just what is it like your daily practice, something that kind of keeps you grounded, thinking about your values, that kind of a thing?
Yeah. So it's interesting that you're asking this because I'm actually going through that phase right now where trying to kind of define my values, what I care about. And I'll tell you, um, there's a book that also I'm reading. It's changing my perspective of life, and it's an old book. It's Seven Habits of Effective People,
That's a great book.
and it's eye opening of how you're approaching things in life. Everything is logical, but the way Stephen Covey wrote the book, is makes it put it in a more of a framework that a lot of things that someone else was telling me before I did not listen to. I read it in this book. It's so eye opening, and I'll tell
Okay.
you the I started kind of developing what are my values and what defines me, and I want to narrow it into like a couple. And one of them is being kind. If I find myself like every action I take, my values is to be kind to people, to be kind, and I'm learning that a lot also from my my older son who's 5.5. It's not old, but he's amazing. Like the other day, my back hurt. I woke up first thing. I woke up in the morning, and the first thing he told me, "How's your back?" And
Oh,
that was very emotional for me because, I mean, like a 5 year old, 5.5 year old to recognize that this is the first thing you ask is was it was very emotional for me. But
wonderful.
so being kind is one thing. The other one is um, challenge yourself. And being always in a case of challenging myself is what gets the best out of me. Um, And by challenging myself, it reflects in a lot of things in personal life. Like I was never a runner. I decided I want to run a marathon, trained for it, ran 6. Um, Same thing. Like if I don't know, I'm not good at a certain subject. I read about it because I challenge myself. It's the ego. Like I like to learn, but it's more of like the challenge of learning. And um, if I'm doing a professional work, I would like try to do something that okay, it's challenging because that's what helps me grow. I believe that your brain. I think this is scientifically right, but I'm not entirely sure. But your brain is a muscle, and the more you challenge it, the more you strengthen it, the more you um. It's like challenge yourself is the gym for your brain, right? Um, so that's kind of what motivates me as a person and my family, of course. I think I mentioned to you something that we started doing, and I borrowed it from a friend of mine, an idea. But we've been doing it now since the beginning of this school year. Um, every Friday, I have it blocked on my calendar. It's called Fun Fridays, and my wife and I basically drop off the kids to school, and then we have our Friday mornings. We do whatever we want. We go have breakfast. We go play tennis. We one time we were in Austin, so we took a kayak and went on Lady
Hmm.
Bird. And it's our time. We don't have to plan for babysitting. We don't have to plan for all of that. And I think it's very important in your professional life to make sure you are protecting time for your family, because that is the most important relationship and the most important thing that you're going to invest in. And it's very easy to get busy with work. And if you're not blocking that time, protecting that time, you're never going to find that time. You're going to always say, I'm busy.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's really good.
That's a great idea. It's the world we live in too. You
Yes.
have to
Yes.
plan. You have to protect your
I,
time from things.
yes, I know. I know. I borrowed this idea from a friend of mine or stole it. I don't know. But like, I mean, I've been religiously doing it.
No,
So uh,
it's a great recommendation, and also it's interesting because I try and do that with my phone. I know Roland does too. Just like, okay, you go over there and stay over there for 2 hours, and nothing will happen, you know, and like just remember what it's like to not have that, and that's a protection of time, also, you know.
yeah,
So
I'm a bad actor with the phone. I need to get away from the habit of turning it around every few
we all
seconds.
have it. I think I don't know a single person who doesn't. I know one person at my daughter's school who doesn't have a mobile phone. She managed to spend her whole career not doing that, but her life is very contained in this very specific way, and she's happy that way, and she doesn't actually need the phone. It's very interesting, but we can talk about that another time. Okay,
Yep.
Roland, shall we wrap it up? Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Adel. Yeah.
Of course, of course. Thank you for hosting me. It was a great conversation. It was a pleasure to be on your podcast.
Well, and likewise, you know, I think the example you used, I think, is a great way to highlight to anybody listening. This is exactly the reason that Adel is the specialist that he is, and, you know, avail of his services if you need them. Um, so, Roland?
Yeah, and I guess the one thing, Adel, we'll make sure that we put contact information for you in the show notes so that everyone knows how to get in touch with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're happy to have a conversation with anyone. Give them like my 2 cents, my second opinion. I'm always happy to help other fellow entrepreneurs in order to help them achieve their dreams.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So, thanks everyone for joining us today on this episode of Alt Investing Made Easy. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, and follow us. And we'll see you next time.
And remember, everyone, take aim with your alternative investing strategies.